Good morning, everybody. It's Graham from Unearthed UK again, and for this week's episode of Detecting Talk, there is one or two things that I would like to discuss with you wonderful people out there. One of them, the first one is, and a lot of you people may have seen this being bandied around on YouTube, social media such as Facebook and some of the forums. And it is regarding the rumour that is starting to gather a little bit of pace and momentum about a detecting licence being introduced into this country. Now at this stage, well, when I first was sent the information regarding it, I thought it was just a load of hype, just a rumour that needed to be squashed. And I still pretty much think that the situation with this banded licence scheme that's going around at the moment is pretty much hearsay and rumour. However, I was sent this bit of a document, I guess is probably the best way to describe it, on the weekend. So it gave me a chance to have a good look at it, and it was from a metal detecting forum. Now, the guy or the people that have put it on this particular forum are classed as the NCMD. So it must be I guess it's somebody that works for the NCMD or a spokesperson for the NCMD that is responding to some of these rumours regarding the licensing scheme that is being talked about. So the licensing scheme, they're talking of a report, a DC research report. I have to say I don't know too much about this, and the reason why I'm speaking about this today is because it's not common knowledge, and I think a lot of people at the moment should take it with a pinch of salt. However, there is quite a lot of talk about it. I'm getting messages, quite a lot of messages actually over the weekend and into Monday yesterday and Tuesday, talking about is it going to come out, is it going to be compulsory, etc, etc. At this stage I'm saying, from my point of view and my angle, that I know very little about it apart from what's wrote on this document or this printed document from a post off one of the forums regarding the licensing scheme. And you know, you can see there's a little bit of detail in there. I think what it is, I think somebody's trying to respond to a rumour. I think that's what it is at the moment. I can read a little bit of this out to you guys, but I'm going to be looking down, so don't think I'm being rude. But at the same time, I've got to read it. I can't memorise. I'm not clever enough or young enough to memorise all that. But let's just have a look at some of the detail. It starts off with some internal discussions. Probably best to answer the comments and queries in one response. So somebody's obviously asking questions here, and it's something about this DC research which I need to look at a little bit more carefully. DC research report was a way of examining all aspects of the portable antiquities scheme and followed with a discussion workshop with local partners. So we need to get to the bottom. Some of you guys out there may know what this DC research report was about. So I'm not going to go into talking about something I haven't got a bloody clue about. But local partners around the table, workshops with the fines layers and officers and others. So it sounds to me like a group have got together to discuss this DC report, doing workshops, bit of brainstorming going on with the PAS and the FLOs. Part of the PAS Portable Antiquities Strategy Review resulted in the proposal of various options for the PAS after 2020, when the current funding package expires. Hence all sorts of ideas were added to the mix, including a licence and taxing fines as treasury rewards to help fund the portable antiquity scheme. So that's where it's coming from. So there is a bit of substance to it, I guess. Most ideas have not made it to the next phase, so we will have to see where the idea of licensing goes. No doubt the figure of 1.6% of the adult population that this DC research claims to be the users of metal detectors. Apparently it's 1.6 people of adult population have a metal detector. And think that a licence fee of £250 a year could be raised despite a lot of the income going towards administration and staff wages to run the licensing department. We have no knowledge of how this figure was arrived at or nor how reliable the statistics are from the guys that produced it. In reality, HMG should fund the PAS and not rely on any other mechanism to fund it. And I think that's a response from the NCMD. And then it goes on to talk about we've got to be careful what we wish for. They've got to be careful what they wish for. You know, if a licensing scheme came out, it'd have to be compulsory and would require criminal sanctions for not having a license. This would in turn require legislation, either primary or clauses added to another piece of legislation to establish the detail. And do you think it would stop there? And, you know, would this be an opportunity for certain third parties to heap more restrictions and controls on the hobby of detecting? And it just goes on to talk about the NCMD in general not raised its subs for probably a decade. It was always a matter of... It goes on and on. Anyway, so this information, this rumour about this licensing fee has got people talking, and it's got people's backs up, and they're all, you know, there's a couple of people unhappy about it, or quite a lot of people unhappy about it. And to you guys that are watching this, it's probably the first thing you've ever heard of it, but I'm of the mind that it's, at the moment, it's just rumour, it's just being bandied around. Personally, I don't think we've got anything to worry about with regards to a £250 licence fee. Would the £250 be a per annum fee, or would it be a one-off licence fee? I don't know. I don't know any more information other than what's come out of this. Watch a couple of the YouTube videos that are out there when people are talking about it. But you've got to ask yourself, you know, how would a licensing scheme be monitored? You know, it'll be almost impossible to check if everybody that uses a metal detector would have this license in the first place. So they're not going to be walking around following people on the fields asking if they've got it. So at the moment, I think it's a load of rumour. I could have said something else there, but I don't think there's anything to worry about. So all the guys that are messaging me at the moment asking me, do I know anything about it? And it's going to ruin the hobby and they can't afford it and they're going to give up and everything else. I just don't think you've got to worry about anything at the moment. And I'm sure if anything did come up in the future about a licence scheme, the NCMD would put a strong response back to them regarding making it compulsory, etc, etc. So let's we'll put a lid on that now. I thought it was important to bring it up because I know some people probably never heard about it and have seen or heard of, some of you might have seen and heard of the rumours out there that are going round, but it was important for me to sort of touch on it from this document that's been handed to me, and that's where it's obviously these rumours and all this information's come from. So let's have some of your comments on it. If some of you guys out there already know about it and know more information than me, you've got to remember I've only been fed this information off one guy and then loads and loads of messages and emails asking if I know anything about it since. So I'm probably in the dark just as much as everybody else is, but it's important that we brought it to this episode of Detecting Talk, because that's what we're about. We're about talking about detecting. You know, any topics that come up, we're going to sit here and discuss them. If we don't know too much information, we'll try our best to get more and more information on it. So let's, at this point, say it's just a rumour and there's nothing to worry about. Carry on detecting regardless. Enjoy the hobby, folks. Now, coming away from that, I'm getting one or two emails from people that have been detecting for some time and are enjoying the hobby, and we've introduced them, Unearthed, to the hobby. We've sold them their first metal detector, or the second metal detector even, and they're all finding weird and wonderful things all over the place. But there's been a spate of, when I say 2 or 3 messages, probably more, asking, do I think personally that everything that's out there is just about being found? You know, are we now in a situation where we're just scrapping around for the scraps that have been left out in the fields, woodlands, beaches, etc, etc? And my response to every one of the comments and emails that I got regarding this question is quite simple. Believe me, we're only just scratching the surface of detecting finds. Believe me. There's an immeasurable amount of finds still out there to be found with the detectorist, for the detectorist, with a detector. So if you think about what's been found in the past, there's been some wonderful hoards and there's been some wonderful singular finds, there's been some really awesome single coin finds, and I firmly believe we're just still scratching the surface. If you Google, if you're bored enough or sad enough to Google how much land is out there in the UK compared to the built up areas, the towns and cities, it's an extremely low number. of built up areas compared to farmland, open land, etc, etc. There's vast swathes of land out there that haven't even been detected. The problem is getting on there to actually detect in the first place, which is a completely separate argument. But you think about it, you know, 3,000, 4,000 years of people losing stone axes, and then into the Bronze Age for the Bronze Age finds, and then the Iron Age, and then onto the Romans, the Saxons, the Vikings, the medieval people, and so on. Through the ages, people have always lost coins and artifacts. When we were kids growing up, we were losing coins and our toys and things all over the place, and it was no different back then. So there's a huge amount of finds out there still waiting to be discovered. Make no bones about it, folks. There is hundreds and thousands of single coins, artifacts just lying there ready to be found by you careful and considerate detectorists. But the argument is, you know, we got to get on the land in the first place to find, you know, to find these things. In that, you know, it's difficult sometimes to get the permission, which we've covered on previous metal detecting talk films. And also, it's got to consider as well is the technology now is changing. So what we're finding is we're selling metal detectors to people that have been detecting for maybe 4 or 5 years on particular farms, and then they're upgrading their metal detectors to the new kid on the block. And well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Equinox, for example. The Minelab Equinox 800 here in Cumbria and the north is doing extremely well. Make no bones about it. It's doing extremely well on the pasture fields where there's a lot of cork, because it sees through the cork. People are going back over their lands where they think it's pretty much dried out with their particular machine. They're using the Equinox and they're starting to pick up the deeper hammered coins and artifacts that they've missed previously. So the technology now is jumping, where people are now finding that they're going back over their old land and finding more and more with the new machines. So, you know, the technology plays a part to it, but believe me, there's a heck of a lot of, I mean, I can just imagine how much unbelievable hoards and things must be still lying out there waiting to be found. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. And of course, a lot of the good finds probably are buried under, you know, motorways, tarmac, roads into cities, housing estates, you know, factories, shopping markets, you name it. You know, there'll be a lot of archaeology and finds and such like lost under these places. But believe me, the open fields, pasture, ploughed land, arable land, etc., there's still an amazing amount of stuff to be found. So, you know, no need to worry, folks. The finds aren't going anywhere. Detecting's only been around, what, 40 years, 50 years? In that little small window. And you're talking 2,500, 3,000 years of metallic objects being lost in the ground. Okay, the population wasn't as big as it is now, but there was still a heck of a lot of people there, dropping a heck of a lot of things over a huge period of time. So, you know, we could detect every day for the next 500,000 years in great groups, and we still wouldn't get it all out. There's just an immense amount of finds out there just waiting to be found, recorded, looked after, and in some cases handed over as treasure. So I do thank you guys that have sent me the emails over. Darren was one of them from the northeast asking the question, and I hope that's answered it, Darren. There's loads and loads of really good stuff out there still waiting to be found. The key is getting on the land to find it in the first place. A completely separate argument. We've covered it in the past, and we may cover it again in the future. So I hope that helps ease people's minds. Some of you guys out there might think to yourselves, "Oh, we've found just about everything now. We've been doing sites for 10 years that are completely dried out." Well, that might be the case, but you've also got to remember, I've been doing some detecting in a particular area, in a particular county for over 20 odd years. And the same fields we did 20 odd years ago are still producing every season. Now, it's not a case of us walking, well, it probably is a case of us walking over and missing it in the past, but the plough is continuously bringing these ancient finds to the surface. Again, the new machines are faster, recovery, like the machine I use, the G2 Plus, it's an incredible machine in amongst the iron for winkling up the small coins and artifacts. Much better than the machines I used to use in the past. And you know, it's doing the business. It's picking up the stuff that I've missed previous with other detectors. There's no two ways about it. Same with the Equinox in the north. That's now hoovering up the coins and artifacts that other people have missed on their particular permissions that they've had for the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years or whatever. So worry not, folks, there is still plenty out there to be discovered. Lastly, I may stop doing the detecting videos in the fields where I'm making the finds, like I was at the weekend in the wind. Now the reason is, it's much more comfortable for me to do the detecting talk videos like we're doing now, and these films are quite good for me to do personally, but I'm hoping that you guys get a lot out of them. Now, the reason why I'm thinking of stopping doing the detecting films in the field is because A, it's time consuming for me to do, believe it or not. You know, you're videoing your finds when they're coming up and you're doing a bit of talking and you're showing people what to find, you're finding, and then you've got to stitch all them little videos together because each one of them frames is individual, and then we knit them together with some software to make one long film. And then you've got to edit it, and believe it or not, I've got to take some of the content out because a couple of times I've swore in the past, believe it or not, and I don't want that on these videos. I've had a pause, I've had a bit of a brain freeze when I'm talking and I can't get my words out, so that's been edited out. And then you've got to put the screenshots in where you're talking about the particular find. You've got to type the text in the boxes so it shows up on the screen, and it's time consuming. And I don't think we get a great deal of response. I mean, I think the last video got about 650 views. Whereas these detecting talk sessions can get anywhere up to 2,000 views or more. So there's definitely a contrast there, in so much as I think people are probably watching these detecting talk films much more than they're watching me waffling on out in the field and showing the finds that I'm making. So that's going to slow down the detecting films. These detecting talk sessions will continue until further notice, and as long as you guys still enjoy watching them, we'll continue to do them. So that's just a little bit of info for you people. Lastly, I'd like a bit of a shout out. I don't often do this on this YouTube channel, but I think it's important to do so. We have a friend in the United States called the Hunter GT. Now, you'll look, if you follow YouTube and you like detecting channels, check him out. The Hunter GT on YouTube, a gentleman called John, very clever guy, knows his detectors. Reviews products. You'll see him out in the parks in the United States detecting his coins and bits and pieces that he finds. Very passionate about the hobby, a great guy to subscribe to. So if you just want a bit more information on products and etc, check out the Hunter GT. Great guy. And of course we've got people on our YouTube channel that follow us and leave some really nice comments that I follow back and sometimes watch their videos. So we've got the Mind Lab boys that are out there. He's a decent chap. He finds some nice gear. Give him a subscribe. And we've also got Robbie Cole, the Dinnington Detector. We've spoke about him before. He's a great guy. He's found some nice stuff recently. His last video, he produced some nice coins and artifacts. Give him a subscribe. Why not? You know, if you guys like watching YouTube videos of people out doing the business, give him a watch. If anybody else wants a shout out, drop me a message. Pleased to do so. It's all about sharing and caring in this game. I'm sure it is. So, happy days. We'll see you next week on the next episode of Detecting Talk. Please leave a comment if you think it's worth it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sorry about the content, probably about this proposal of the license, but I think it was important to read that out to show you guys what's out there on some of the forums, and it's causing a little bit of friction and a little bit of interest to certain individuals. Okay, I will see you next time. Take